to apply the law to Donald Trump and render decisions that Trump doesn't like. Come on, let's face it. We all know that President Trump doesn't think that the rule of law applies to him. He can do anything. That's what he said. So this hearing is for show. And who's the audience? President Trump.
In today's explosive hearing, Senator Mazie Hirono called for a closer look at judicial accountability, turning the spotlight on Justice Clarence Thomas and the ongoing controversy over undisclosed gifts.
Thank you. I'm really glad that that the chair and others have expressed concerns about using facts in order to make decisions. So that's good. So let's look at the facts. Let's talk about those facts. Chief Judge Boasberg issued non-disclosure orders for subpoena seeking telephone records. My Republican colleagues object to the judge's decision. But then he issued these orders. When he issued those orders, he did not know that the phones belonged to senators because nobody told him. And that was the longtime DOJ practice at the time of his decision. Jack Smith testified to this under oath before the House Judiciary Committee last month. And if we have questions about that aspect of what was going on, we can invite Jack Smith to come and testify in an open hearing as he has offered to do. Meanwhile, as for the judge, he was told that President Trump or those who tried to help him overturn the election made or received calls from these phone numbers on January 6th or shortly before. Courts are required to issue non-disclosure orders when there is reason to believe that not doing so would lead to witness intimidation or evidence tampering. That does not mean, as Jack Smith testified last month. In fact, here's his testimony. This is his transcript of the testimony he provided to the House Judiciary Committee. He testified that the senators whose records were seized, he was not testifying that they were the ones who would tamper with evidence or intimidate witnesses, only that someone would. Instead, again, according to Jack Smith's sworn testimony, non-disclosure orders were sought because President Trump repeatedly tried to intimidate witnesses. We have all been witness to the fact that President Trump goes after people he doesn't agree with, and he is very busy targeting people. We know that. So if my colleagues want more answers, they should invite, again, Jack Smith to testify publicly as he has offered to do. Or at the least, they should read the transcript of his sworn testimony. We care about facts? Well, hey, here are facts that he's providing. If my colleagues are looking for someone to blame for their phone records being seized, they should blame President Trump, who tried to overturn an election on January 6th and called or had someone else call the senators in the process. But this impeachment crusade, this hearing, is not about supposedly judicial misconduct. It is about intimidating and threatening judges who have the temerity to apply the law to Donald Trump and render decisions that Trump doesn't like. Come on, let's face it. We all know that President Trump doesn't think that the rule of law applies to him. He can do anything. That's what he said. So this hearing is for show. And who's the audience? President Trump. If the standard for impeaching judges was that they issue decisions we disagree with, then I would call for the impeachment of the justices behind opinions like Citizens United, Dobbs, or the hand-picked judges in Texas who are the targets of so much judge shopping. But a judge or a justice's decisions should not be the basis of an impeachment, which is something the Senate has understood since the Jefferson administration. And that's why and so many of us, we don't call for judges to be impeached based on how they do their jobs and the fact that we disagree with how they do their jobs. And if we want to talk about judicial accountability, we should conduct further oversight of Justice Thomas's failure to disclose the many gifts he has received as an example. That's just one example. In the meantime, let's stop with these kinds of hysterical, and I would say dangerous attacks on the judiciary. And as for Judge Boardman, her sentencing decision is on appeal, and as the Chief Justice Roberts has said, the appellate process is the appropriate process. And that is exactly what is happening. I am running out of time, but I just wanted to ask Professor Vladeck. So we're sitting here spending hours talking about impeaching judges whose decisions we don't agree with. And there has also been criticism of Judge Bozorg for how he assigns cases in the U.S. District Court in D.C. And I think that there are guidelines on how he does that, and it's, I think, random assignments. And that's different. For example, I would say, maybe you can explain further the difference between the random assignments we're seeing in D.C. and the judge shopping in certain district courts within the Fifth Circuit.
Sure. I mean, Senator, just very briefly, because I know time is short. So the D.C. District Court has a random assignment process. I believe this committee is in possession of a letter from the administrative office that walks through how that process works specifically in DDC. There's a Fox News story by a reporter named Brianne Deppish that I think concluded that, in fact, Judge Bozorg has a disproportionately low percentage of cases challenging Trump administration policies. That is different from at least what is the one district court left that has judge shopping, the Northern District of Texas, where it's still the case that 100% of cases filed in Amarillo, for example, are assigned to Judge Matthew Kaczmarek, or 100% of the cases filed in Wichita Falls are assigned to Judge O'Connor. And Senator Hirono, I think it's a relevant point because even as I think, have visibly been one of the loudest public critics of the practice of judge shopping, never did I call for the impeachment of Judge O'Connor or of Judge Kaczmarek, even for indulging this process, even for denying motions to transfer, even in the case of Judge Kaczmarek for taking a shot at me, right? This is how the court system is supposed to work. When things go wrong in that process, we appeal or we reform. And just really briefly on the call records, that to me is the productive part of this conversation. If a majority of this committee, if the full committee thinks that the targets of call record subpoenas have a right to be notified, then so be it. Then that's a conversation about how we can change a law. That's a conversation we've had about foreign intelligence surveillance for the last 15 years. So I think we're trying to use the lens of judicial impeachment to get around the fact that there are actually meaningful substantive policy questions here that are much more fruitful to discuss.
Hirono's argument goes beyond partisan politics.
I'm really
She
glad
says
that
this is about the integrity of the judiciary
and
ensuring that Americans can trust that judges act fairly without outside influence. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with these crucial updates on our legal system and government oversight. Hirono began by emphasizing the importance of facts over political theater. She recounted the testimony of Special Counsel Jack Smith, who explained that non-disclosure orders for subpoenas of senators' phone records were issued following standard DOJ practice. Crucially, Smith testified under oath that the orders were not targeting the senators themselves, but were meant to prevent witness intimidation or tampering, particularly given the chaotic environment surrounding the events of January 6th. Hirono made it clear if there are questions about these procedures, Congress should invite Smith to testify publicly or review his sworn testimony, rather than using the issue to attack the judiciary. The senator stressed that these hearings are increasingly being used as political theater. The focus on judicial impeachment, she argued, is often less about misconduct and more about sending a message to judges who make decisions that certain politicians dislike. Hirono noted that presidents like Trump have historically disregarded the rule of law when it conflicts with their interests, highlighting the need to protect judicial independence. Hirono contrasted this with real examples of judicial accountability. She suggested that if lawmakers truly wanted to address issues in the judiciary, they should examine Justice Thomas's failure to disclose numerous gifts and financial interests, a concrete issue of ethics and transparency that affects public trust in the Supreme Court. The senator
Instead,
also addressed
again,
concerns
according to
about
Jack
judge
Smith's
assignment
sworn
processes,
testimony,
noting
non-disclosure
differences between
orders
random case
were
assignments
sought
in the
because
D.C.
President
District Court
Trump
and deliberate
repeatedly
judge
tried
shopping
to
in other
intimidate
circuits,
witnesses.
such as the Northern
We
District
have
of
all been
Texas.
witness to the
While
fact
some
that
judges
President
have been
Trump goes after
criticized
people
for
he doesn't agree
disproportionately
with, and
receiving
he
certain types
is
of
very
cases,
busy targeting people.
Hirono
We know
emphasized
that.
that the correct
So if my
recourse
colleagues
is
want more
appeal
answers,
or
they should
systemic
invite
reform,
again Jack Smith
not
to testify
impeachment for
publicly,
simply
as he
following
has
the law.
offered to do.
Finally,
Or at the
Hirono
least, they
highlighted a
should
broader
read
lesson.
the
The debate
transcript
over judicial
of his sworn
oversight shouldn't
testimony.
be
We care about
reduced to
facts. Well, okay,
sensational
here are
headlines
facts
or partisan
provided.
attacks.
If
Instead,
my
she
colleagues are
argued,
looking for
Congress
someone
should
to
focus on
blame for their
meaningful
phone
policy
records being
questions,
seized,
including
they should blame
transparency in
President
judicial
Trump, who
gifts,
tried to
procedural
overturn an
fairness in
election on
case
January
assignments,
6th
and the proper
called
balance
or had
between law
someone
enforcement
else
and civil
call
liberties.
the senators
By grounding oversight in
in the
facts and
process.
systemic concerns
But this
rather than
impeachment
politics,
crusade,
Americans can have
Syria,
confidence in the
it's not
judiciary
about
and the rule of law.
supposedly judge
Subscribe
judicial
now to stay
misconduct.
informed as we
It is
follow
about
these judicial
intimidating and
hearings
threatening
and examine
judges
how accountability,
who have the
transparency,
temerity
and ethics shape the future
to
of the
apply
American
law
legal
to
system.
Donald Trump.